Oh, look at that one, what a beauty. It's an absolute block of ice, but a mahogany one. Oh, mental. Lovely, lovely carp. Well, it is cold today, absolutely freezing, and I think one of the hardest things is the winter is actually getting out and going fishing, getting the motivation. And luckily I've got Mike with me because we've both sort of egged each other on to come out and do some fishing, and I'm glad we have because the action has been fast and furious. There's a bit of a lull in the action right now, so I thought it's best time to talk about a few of the fundamental things in the winter. Of course, location plays its part and you have to try and get on fish, that's a given. But a really important aspect of your winter fishing and going into early spring is your bait application. Now, over the years, I've refined my methods and some of my processes around bait. And I think I've found the perfect combination to make the bait, one, more attractive, one more palatable, and really important, aiding gut transit time. I don't hear anyone talking about gut transit time, but it's a very important consideration, particularly in the winter. So I'm going to go through my processes. I've got my bait all here. I'll go through and show you exactly what I do to the bait to increase the effectiveness at this time of year. Well, before I go on to the bait process, I think it's really important to anchor it back to the carp itself. And being that it's winter, it's 6 degrees, the water temperature, that is freezing, and it means the carp is 6 degrees as well, being that it's cold-blooded. And the carp is just trying to get through these winter months. It's trying to get through to March when the sun comes out and the water temperature starts going the other way and getting warmer. So it's everything's geared towards trying to get through these next few weeks or months. And when I think of the effects of the cold water on the carp, the enzyme activity is going to be suppressed in the gut transit time. Now, enzyme activity, for anyone who doesn't know, when the carp consumes bait, it'll go through the gut transit and it will secrete many things, but enzymes included, which will then start to break down the food type and food stuff so they can extract nutrients. So it's a pretty basic system, but in essence, that's how it works. Now, we want to be giving them bait that's going to aid not only mechanically in terms of being broken down easily, but also when it goes through the gut transit lines, we want it almost going through as a liquid, almost like a slurry. We don't want to get anything and no hard types going through that. And this is where, when I think to classic winter baits, I think of sweet corn, you think of maggots, casters, they all have one thing in common. They are all quite soft, but also they all have a very, very high water content, being 98 and 99% in most of those cases. So when we come on to bait, I want to mimic that, because when it gets crushed up in the carp's pharyngeal teeth, particularly those baits I've just talked about, it almost goes through as a liquid, like a slurry, which is easy for the carp. So we're trying to mimic that. So I want to make the bait soft. And any of you guys that have used our Baitworks bait would know that most of our boilies are on the soft side. They're quite soft, and that's made for very, very good reason, because the carp definitely have a preference for eating softer food items over hard. We see it time and time in the tank. We see it time and time when we're testing baits in snags and watching fish in live real-time conditions. So we want to make the baits nice and soft, and there's a few ways, particularly in the winter months. This is a crucial time when I think making your baits soft with a high water content comes into their own. It just helps the fish with how they consume the baits and also how they process it. So I'm going to take you through the processes, because over the years I've refined this down to making sure that I'm making the bait as attractive, palatable, and also going through the fish as quick as possible. So I'll take you through that right now.
Well, my hands are freezing cold. Just like Mark with his fish a minute ago, there's some really short, intense feeding spells in the winter. We managed to capitalise on them today with a real flurry of lovely carp like this.
So for me, this process actually starts 24 hours before I go fishing, and usually at home. All I do is take the bait, and all I'm doing is adding warm water. And I think it's really important to emphasize that I'm not putting boiling hot water on the baits. I see lots of people using this in videos, and I think all you're doing is denaturing the bait. There's lots of delicate protein chains and amino acids in the boilies themselves, and when you put water above 70 degrees on it, you're starting to denature and making them useless. So don't do that, just put warm water, that's all you need. And another added benefit of adding water 24 hours before you go fishing is I'm starting lots of good processes in the boilies themselves. you've got natural enzyme activity, bacteria, we all start to break down and almost start to pre-digest the boilie. So we're actually benefiting the fish 24 hours before it's actually consumed the bait, because we're starting all these good processes. Now, to the water, I'm adding, or to the warm water, I'm adding screamer compound and a little bit of the Cremino dip. Both super soluble, both will soak into the baits as well, which will then add that all important more bit of attraction. So we can mimic there being lots more bait down there than there actually is by increasing the soluble food signals. So the other bait we introduced as well at this stage is your sweet corn. Absolute classic, as I mentioned before, it's visual as well, so the carp can pick it out from distance, and it's got a high water content, so it ticks the box perfectly. So that goes in, and then that's just left for 24 hours. Now, when you pick the baits up between your finger and thumb, it'll be incredibly soft. There'll be no pressure whatsoever to be able to squish that bait. And from a carp's point of view, when it's mechanically trying to break them down in its pharyngeal teeth, that's a big win. That's a big plus. It'll go down to almost like a slurry, which will then go through the gut transit and give the carp the best opportunity to be able to extract the important nutrients that it needs. Now, these baits are very, very soft. We can't use these on the hook, unfortunately, because they're very, very soft. So what I've done is devised another way of introducing more paste out to the area, but also fishing a paste hook bait. And I'll take you through that process now.
That's the proof in the pudding of the effectiveness of very, very soft and digestible baits in the winter. It's a lovely carp.
So both mine and Mike's fish have all fallen to this tactic, and it's actually really, really simple, but I don't see many people doing it. So to take you through it, all we do, we're using a Cremino 12mm wafter. To this, we're then getting our freezer paste and we're moulding a thin layer of paste around the wafter, which is obviously then gone onto either a bait screw or onto a hair. The other thing we're doing is then putting a paste wrap around a lead. So we've got, like, if you need like a 3-ounce lead to get out to the area you're fishing, we use like a 2.5-ounce lead and then wrap the remaining 1/2 ounce almost with paste around the lead. We warm the paste up firstly in our hands, get it all nice and pliable, mould it around both the hook bait and the lead. And then the crucial element is when we go to cast that, we literally dip the whole lot in the water in the winter, in the cold water, and that will just firm up the binders a little bit in terms of from it being warm to going cold. It's stiffened up a little bit. And then when you go, you can then I've cast that personally over like 120 yards. And in terms of the breakdown time, well, the interesting thing about the paste, it's a fantastic vehicle for prolonged attraction. So if you think about a PVA bag or pellets or anything like that, when that's breaking down, you get an initial burst of attraction and then it all gets suppressed. With paste, it's breaking down all the time. Because we're using freezer paste that hasn't been boiled, it's literally, as soon as it goes in the water, it's starting that breakdown process straight away. And also it's a prolonged attraction over about 8 or 9 hours in the winter. I'm still winding back in the morning with bits of paste on the underside of the lead where it's been sandwiched against the lake bed. So I know that it's all been active and working for that long, long period. So it's a great method. It's caught me and Mike loads of fish over the last day or so. And it's one that, I say, ignore it at your peril, because in the right conditions, the fish absolutely love it. Well, that is very, very welcome on a very cold January day. And yeah, you get that bait in the right place in front of the fish and they usually oblige. Old paste wrap, super soluble, screams that eat me signal. And this one certainly liked it. Lovely.